Hi, everybody. This is Christopher Phillips, and this is my first presentation introduction to our class on Human Freedom and Autonomy, honors course at Western Colorado University. I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it meaningful. I'm just going to give sort of a little bit of a extemporaneous talk here. Uh, my background. Well, first of all, here's my family. Let's see, here we go. This is my youngest sibling. That's me. That's my oldest daughter, Callie, who has her birthday next week. This is my wife, Ceci. And Ceci's from Mexico City, and she studied philosophy, and then she became an activist for indigenous people's rights in Chiapas, Mexico. And then she came to New Jersey to get her master's degree, and I met her there at something called a Socrates Cafe. Hopefully you'll know a good bit about Socrates Cafe before all is said and done. But in 1996, probably before you were born, I started these gatherings called Socrates Cafe. And they're meant to be these philosophical inquiry groups where we explore timely questions using a version of the Socratic method. I was deeply influenced by my yaya, my Greek grandmother, and everything I do. Let me see if I can show you my tattoos. See that? Can you see that? Ugh. Here we go. There's two Greek words on the tattoo, and one of them is meraki, that she taught me. It's to live a life of passion and soul, commitment to everything you do in your waking and maybe sleeping days. And then the other word was arete, which means to live a life of all-around excellence. But it's a kind of excellence in which duty to self and duty to others goes hand in glove. So by the Greek ethos of arete, you can't be everything that you can be unless you also help others become all that they can be and do your utmost to make conditions fertile for everybody to discover, develop, and contribute their talents to self and society on myriad scales. How do you do that? Well, one way is through inquiry, to discover more about who you are and who you become, and by helping others, sort of by serving as a gentle mirror into other people's souls as well. And you help them become more autonomous. You help set them free, and they in turn do the same for you. Anytime there's an interaction where you're truly inquisitive, engaged, encountering another human soul, it's almost impossible not to grow as a human being and not to change as a human being. So I graduated from William and Mary, College of William and Mary, which is our nation's second oldest university in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I earned a bachelor's degree in government. I changed majors every semester until the second semester of my junior year. I even created a major for myself once, and I didn't like that. So there were great political philosophers in that department, and international relations I loved. And so I graduated from there a lifetime ago in 1981. Stayed out of school for 15 years as I became first a newspaper journalist and then a writer for national magazines. And then in 1996, at a time when our country was deeply divided, I started Socrates Cafe. Socrates Cafe, this is just came out a few years ago in Portugal. It's come out in about 20 different languages around the world. It's my first book. I've written 5 for adults and about 7 or so for kids, all philosophical books. And they're used in classrooms quite often. I don't like to use them typically as my own classroom text. But again, I've been holding these gatherings around the world now for 24 years. Here's my second book that came out, 6 Questions of Socrates, a modern-day journey of discovery through world philosophy. And I held dialogues all over the globe, and I discovered, I'm from Newport News, Virginia. I have dual U.S. Greek citizenship, but I bring that sensibility, I bring that eggshell with me wherever I go. And when I have inquiries with other people, I sort of chip away a little bit at that eggshell. And I learn more about their philosophers, their belief traditions, their wisdom ways. And quite often, what's fascinating about that is I discover that the Greek way of inquiry wasn't so different than theirs. For instance, when I went to South Africa and held, during their celebration of freedom from apartheid, I held dialogues there and learned about their wonderful philosophy of Ubuntu. And I write about that, I think, in my third book, Socrates in Love. I don't have that with me. Here's some other show and tell here, right? Here's this. This came out. It just was reissued in Chinese. My third book. I call it my stealth book because nobody really knows about it, even though it's my favorite. Good Valentine's Day read. One of my children's books, published by 10 Speed and then Penguin Random House, Ceci Ann's Day of Why, which follows a child through her questioning day. I'll read you. Actually, you know what? The children's books, I think, questions are for anybody. Here's the intro. Ceci, here we go. Can you see that? Why are there birds? Why is there sky? Why are there words? Why is there why? You can ask those questions and explore them for hours richly. The kids wrote these children's books. Here's my first book, also 10 Speed Tricycle and then Penguin Random House, Philosopher's Club. And we have a series now. And here's my more politically oriented book, sort of based on some studies when I was at William & Mary, Constitution Cafe, Jefferson's Brew for True Revolution. And I actually invite you to one of my Constitution Cafes on Constitution Day, September 17th. And I hope you'll take part in that. I hold these offbeat mini constitutional conventions all over the U.S. And it was a good way to find out what we like about our Constitution and what we don't, what we would change if we could, but also just to learn about the Constitution because most people actually haven't read it. And of course, here's my first book that came out, Socrates Cafe. So mostly I'm a writer. I do have my bachelor's degree at William & Mary. I have 3 master's degrees in humanities with a special emphasis in philosophy. I have another one, Master of Arts in Teaching, with a degree in teaching philosophy for children, or specialty in teaching philosophy for children. And I have another one in the natural sciences, and I specialized in DNA science because I'm really fascinated with that, and that was what was available to study. And so I taught courses on DNA science and communicating the sciences. And then I got my PhD in communications, and I studied and learned more about the Socratic method and various versions of it. So I am a scholar of a different stripe. I do teach at universities from time to time. I taught at University of Pennsylvania at Penn. I've been an ethics fellow at Harvard. I was the first senior education fellow at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, and other stuff. If you ever want to learn about that, you can just go to my website at christopherphillips.com, and I hope you will go to our nonprofit website, democracycafe.org. It's in English and Spanish. I speak Spanish fluently. And even though I'm a Greek citizen, I don't speak Greek so fluently. But that's going to change. So anyway, so this course on human freedom and autonomy, what does it mean to be autonomous? Does it mean that you just go your own way? You're just not one of the crowd? Or can it mean that you're deeply embedded in society and that you feel that social conscience and individuality and autonomy go hand in glove, and that you feel more of a commitment to your fellow human beings, not just today, but for many generations to come, but also for those who came before us. Maybe those who couldn't realize their higher hopes and aspirations, maybe didn't even know what they were. But maybe you also do that for them as well. I know I do, and not only is it not a burden, but it lightens me. Because, we're here for a while, and then it's up to others to carry the torch. And so I chose the books that I did for you in that tradition. My family's on my dad's side, is from a tiny Greek island called Nisyros, Nisyros. The population, when there's not tourists there, is still a little bit under 1,000. They immigrated through Ellis Island in 1922. And then they eventually settled in Tampa, Florida. And my yaya, my Greek grandmother, became one of the first teachers of Greek language and culture down there. And she instilled a lot of this stuff in me, love of things Greek, things Socratic, that really can be applicable to helping people of many different backgrounds and wisdom, ways, and traditions to flourish more. And it certainly has been a deep influence in my life. But the books, the readings that I chose for you are meant to not be cumbersome. They're meant to be things that you might actually be interested in. That will prompt questions if you read them carefully and thoroughly and deeply. Just immerse yourself in them without really any other motive than that. The two dialogues of Plato's that you're to look at are the Euthyphro, which explores concepts. This is just shortly before Socrates died. They explore, what is piety, what is justice, and I'll be fascinated to know what questions you come up with out of that, and that you'll be leading some discussions and guiding discussions yourselves on our course site, since this is mostly online. And I'll put some things further up on our announcement section about that. And and then there's the Plato's Apology, right before he drinks hemlock and dies after he was sentenced to death for supposedly for committing impious acts, corrupting the youth, and pretty trumped up charges I write about in all my various books in different ways. But so what I'm hoping, the famous quotation he's known for, and that is, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But I'm interested to know what you think some other really moving or meaningful comments, quotes that are made in there. The ones that actually move me more are not when he says this is the life that is most worth living, but when he goes into things like, what are you willing to die for? And that's it sort of ties into the theme of some of the people that we'll be looking at in this book. What are you willing to do sometimes to put it all on the line? You may not die. Hopefully you won't. But what are you willing to take some sublime risks for in life? And so there's some quotes in there where he talks about that are typically overlooked, or at least certainly don't receive the kind of emphasis that his "The unexamined life is not worth living" gets so much play about. So please look at that really thoroughly and see and post about that. The there's a 28-page reading by Hannah Arendt, the political theorist and philosopher. She's a good writer, but she herself is an autonomous soul. She really went her own way in the most difficult and trying times. So I wanted to throw in a 28-page reading by her. That, again, if you go over it carefully and you come up with questions, you'll see how it fits in. This is somebody who didn't just teach about autonomy, didn't just teach about freedom, didn't just write about it, but lived it. And then, my great friend, Dr. Cornel West, author of the classic Race Matters, he edited, curated the collection of readings that are in the Radical King, about that are talks, lectures by Martin Luther King, and I select some from them for you to read. And again, these are things that aren't that are immersive. You want to dive in if you're thinking about who you are, who you can become, what you want your society to be, and societies to come to be. You can't do much better than this. And you have to understand, Dr. King was almost an accidental activist. He came from a nice middle-class family, and he was thrust into a role that he wasn't preparing for, but that nonetheless, when that role was presented, he took it. And, he lost his life as a result. But he lived a life eminently worth living, I would argue. And he's certainly a role model for me, and I know he was for Dr. West, who will be engaging with us in Zoom on Friday, August the 21st. Dr. West was probably more predictable about becoming an activist, but in a way not. He came from his parents certainly emphasized education. He was born on the poor side of town in Sacramento, California, but he's just a brilliant man, the most brilliant man I've ever met. Every time I listen to him, I feel like he's giving a doctoral dissertation kind of lecture, but in a way that's understandable. It's like a jazz riff almost, but he connects so many different things in such a beautiful, almost poetic way. And you'll get so much out of your engagement with Dr. West on Friday, the 21st of August. I'm so grateful for the gift of his time. This is the second time that he's broken bread with students of mine, and it is something that you may remember for a very, very, very long time. And so I hope you make the time, unless you simply impossibly can't, to be part of that. And as I said in the announcement, you're welcome to also invite others. Now, the other reading is the autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm X took a very different approach to Dr. King's ethos of nonviolence. But he also led a transformative life and also was a deeply autonomous soul by my conception of it. But I'm more interested in knowing what your conceptions of it are. But I thought it was very important to give you, in this era of Say Her Name, of Black Lives Matter, the opportunity to read about some of our premier activists who launched a lot of the movements and recognized a lot of the hypocrisies and contradictions of their own day. And people like Dr. West, and among many others, are carrying the torch. And it's not a matter of necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with their outlooks or with all of their outlooks, but of just engaging them and engaging people of a variety of human experiences, and then seeing what you come up with. What are your thoughts and views based on your own unique experiences and wisdom traditions and learning traditions and lots of other things besides? But it's the autobiography of Malcolm X was ghostwritten by a dear friend of mine, Alex Haley, who was the author of Roots. I don't know if you've heard of it. It won a special Pulitzer Prize when it came out. But I think this is actually Alex Haley's most incredible work, and it's very engaging, riveting reading. And I hope that you really, again, want to dig in and dive in. I try to stay away from academic texts, but just to give you experiences that are immersive and that help you further think and learn about human freedom and autonomy, and take it maybe in directions that I haven't thought of. And that's what a lot of our online inquiries will be. If they're guided, they're going to be guided largely by you. And I'll post some things about what this is supposed to be all about, ideally. I may post a couple things I've written about what my version of the Socratic method of inquiry is ideally all about. But again, the idea is to create experiences for you in this one credit course. I'm very accessible. You can email me. I'll make myself available on Zoom, whatever you need. And I'll even have some sort of open hours when we can just engage if you're available by Zoom. And yeah, so this is just my first introduction, and I wanted to go ahead and post this so you'll be ready to hit the ground running starting next week, and then to have a really rich experience with Dr. West on that Friday of next week. And I'm just so glad and grateful he's able to do that. And what a wonderful way to get the semester started. As I put in the announcement section, I actually posted a link to an earlier edition of his classic Race Matters. Please dig into that so you'll be really, really ready to ask him some questions that are out of curiosity. And as I said, feel free, if you know others who would be interested, others, friends of yours at Western Colorado University who would be interested in engaging with them too, who are not in the class but would find it fascinating to have this opportunity, feel free to also share it with them. Just make sure you only share it with others who really would like to thoughtfully engage with him, so we can make the most out of the gift of an hour of his precious time. He's also teaching, and he's teaching at Harvard and at Brown, and is also deeply involved in all the events that are unfolding these days. Most busiest man I've ever met, but he has a heart of gold and always finds time for things that he truly believes in somehow. Okay, that's it for now. I'll leave it at that. Feel free to email me. I put all my contact information if you want to talk, get to know each other, whatever, by Zoom. If you have questions, concerns, I'm here. Okay? And I really look forward to having the gift of this semester with you. And I think it hopefully will be quite meaningful for all of us, emphatically including me. Thanks so much.